Thank you so much, Mr. Chidambaram, for speaking to NDTV. I wanted to ask you what your opinion is about the government's Atmanirbhar or self-reliant plans. I'm sure you would agree that there is nothing wrong in being self-reliant. But how should this be achieved, particularly in the context of China?
Who's against self-reliance? No one is against self-reliance. Earlier, we used to call it self-sufficiency. But is it a code word for hiding something? Is it a code word for autarky? Is it a code word for going back to restrictions on exports and imports and free flow of capital? Is it a code word for pulling out of globalization? I think all that is hidden behind the phrase self-reliance. We're going back to the 1980s, which was a disastrous policy. So as long as self-reliance is consistent with an open and competitive and liberal and global economy, we support self-reliance.
Now, Mr. Chidambaram, are you trying to then suggest that the world view is missing when the government uses the phrase self-reliance?
Absolutely. Where is the doubt? Look at what they are doing. They are introducing non-tariff restrictions. They are adding clauses like any country which shares a geographic border with India would have to go to prior permission. First of all, many of these may be anti-WTO, be that as it may. This is clearly going back to the age of autarky. And that is not good. I thought we have spent almost 20 years trying to explain why an open, competitive, liberal, global economy is the best for growth.
Now, Mr. Chidambaram, the world over, there is a sentiment to practice, many people are calling it economic distancing from China. In India too, there's a clamor for boycotting these Chinese goods. I want to know your opinion on boycotts, and if boycott is not an option, then what is a viable alternative strategy?
If you want to boycott some consumer good which is available on the shelf, please do so. Who's compelling you to buy a Chinese toy as against an Indian toy? But look at what industry represented 3 days ago. If you do a boycott of China, you will shut yourself out of raw materials, components, technology. And when the supply chain is really global, how do you boycott one country? It could be a key link in the global supply chain. And even if you boycott China, what proportion of China-India trade is of total China-world trade? It's a fraction. I think it's something less than 2% or so. So does it hurt China? Does it hurt India?